Alright, so as I was saying, the, where was I? Yeah, engine enamel. Yeah, so I tried the engine enamel, and one of them would actually need to be baked, and that would make things really difficult, and it doesn't really work. Give it a try if you want. The other type of engine enamel, it cracked. So, now I've also heard of a product called POR15, and over here it costs about $100 for, I think it was a gallon, $50 for a quart, something stupid like that. So, if they gave me a lifetime guarantee on that thing, I'd buy it. I'd really buy it, but see, with manufacturers nowadays, like I said, I really don't trust them. Lots of garbage products out there that they put a big name and a big brand, and it's a piece of garbage. So, I mean, if it's so good, why don't they give you some sort of guarantee or warranty? They don't. So, at a car show I asked a few people, I've seen their engines, and I asked them what they did, and they told me that first they cleaned it off with brake fluid, a brake cleaner, and then they used something called Etching Primer, and then they just put regular paint on. Now the thing with Etching Primer is what it does, self-etching primer. It actually has an acid in it, and the acid actually reacts into the steel, which is pretty interesting. Another thing that I was going to say is you got to do the absorption test. So just like wood, steel, and regular steel, and I'm pretty sure cast iron too, they actually absorb water or paint or oil. Okay, and the best way that I found to clean grease is stuff called TSP, which stands for trisodium phosphate. Now you can find it all sorts of different brands, but that's the actual chemical compound, trisodium phosphate, TSP. So, and that's something else too. You see, a lot of times you get the same product, the exact same product, but labeled in lots of different ways. Go to the automotive section, they'll sell you stuff, engine degreaser, and that stuff is a fortune, very expensive. But if you go to the cleaning section of the construction, some construction place like Home Depot or you'll get the same product, trisodium phosphate, sold as something else, or just as trisodium phosphate. So that really makes me upset, but at least I know how to get around it. So I did another video of cleaning a transmission, an F100 transmission, with that stuff, and it's amazing. So as far as grease is concerned, I found the product that I like. That's the best product I've ever seen. It's pretty cheap, works extremely well, and it's actually safe. You can actually put your hands in it and it won't do anything. It'll start to take off the grease from your hands right away, and it'll get wrinkly. But that's it. It's environmentally safe. It's just an amazing product. I love it. So I love that. But with an engine, it's actually soaking in oil, and the best way to really clean it would be to use the TSP stuff and then actually heat it. Heating an engine to maybe 500 degrees Celsius in an oven, just a regular cooking oven, would cause the oil to boil out. That would really clean it really nicely. Okay, so for the absorption test, there are basically 3 different ways you can, what's called activating the surface of steel. And the best way is mechanically activating it, and that's done by sandblasting. So there's another video on YouTube, and you can try this yourself. Just get a regular piece of steel that's nice, flat, and shiny, and you put a drop of water on it, that drop will just bubble up and will not be absorbed by the steel. And if you just flip this piece of steel over, it'll just fall, it'll just fall off. But if you actually sandblast it, you will, and you maybe touch it with your hand afterwards. When you sandblast it, you can actually see the water being absorbed into the steel. So just think of it, if you're painting it, the water instead of the paint, the paint instead of the water will be getting absorbed. Now, for an engine, that's sort of undoable. You don't really want to sandblast an engine, because a tiny grain of sand that gets inside it somehow is going to cause big problems. So after that comes heat treating. So if you actually heat it, a piece of steel with a torch, I'm pretty sure it has some pretty high temperature. The higher the temperature, the more better the result. You will also get a similar phenomenon. It will actually you'll actually be able to put paint there and it will be absorbed. So that's the second method. The first method, mechanically, you're actually throwing stuff at it, which is sand. Second method is you're heating it. Downside with heating is it won't last really long. I think less than a day, if I'm not 100% sure. But there's a video on YouTube, and you can check that out. And finally, the third method is chemical. You actually get something that will react with the steel, and that's the etching primer. I tried it on the oil pen, and it works really well. If you try to scratch it off, it won't come off. So you can also, for rust, there's so many things involved that it's actually kind of hard to explain. For removing rust, the best thing that I found is clean off all big flakes, chunks. You obviously need to clean that off. And clean it up the best. I clean it up the best I can with the wire wheel, wire brush, and all that. That's after it's been degreased, after all the grease is off. If you do it the other way around, you'll still have all the grease on it. It'll just get everywhere. And once you get the wire wheel, the wire wheel is actually pushing the grease into the steel. That's not good. So clean it up first, then remove the rest. I'll get all that big surface area rust off, and then you can use an acid. I like to use. I've used nitric acid. Other acids also work. And, which brings me to this product here. And it's called Gelled Rust Remover. Convenient seal. Removes rust from chrome. Eliminates sanding and leaves a protective barrier layer that eliminates further rust and prepares the surface for paint. Here's where this really got me. Because it's actually, the acid is reacting. And you see, with rust, it's actually a kind of rust, if you will. Rust is the reaction of steel with air and water. And the paint will actually bond to rust quite well. If it's light rust, like this sort of material here. If it's light rust, like that, that's cast iron, by the way. Or if even like that, not the one on the left, the one on the right, that one. Paint will actually bond to it pretty well. Now, if normally for these kinds of things, I just I could get away with just painting it. Paint, just normal paint like that. Rustoleum or Tremclad. I get in a can. I just get a paintbrush. It'll stick pretty well. I've painted the transmission like that, cast iron, steel. It works pretty well, even without primer. You don't need to prime it. If it's like this, you don't have to prime it. It works well. I've had a piece other places underneath the car actually, and they've been fine for over 3 years now. In the snow and the rain, so it works. But this stuff, when you actually use some sort of acid, you're also converting into some sort of rust, and then the paint will actually bond to that kind of rust. So with this stuff here, they make it all nice. And this little thing here costs about $10 if I'm not mistaken. So I just got it just to prove a point too. So it says here all that, nice little logo there, Canadian. And then you look here in the back, and I always do this. So I look at the directions. Shake well before using. Apply generously. Brush vigorously until the rust disappears. Allow to dry, then rinse with water. For heavy rust, repeat application. Dry an extra 10 minutes before rinsing, so that it'll have more time to react. This is actually chemically reacting with the steel. Okay, and then I go to the first aid treatment, and you'll see why I do that. Because they're actually required by law to list components that are dangerous. That way, if people drink this or do stupid stuff with it, paramedics, medical people will be able to treat it, because they know what the ingredients are. But if they don't, then it makes their job difficult. So anyways, it says here, contains phosphoric acid and sodium nitrate. I bet you that this is the only stuff that's in here. I bet. Now this stuff, it's only 227 milliliters phosphoric acid. If you go to the cleaning section, even on the cleaning section at Home Depot, and other places in the same store, you'll find the exact same stuff, phosphoric acid, a whole gallon of it for maybe $15. So once again, this just goes to prove that you can often get the same product in other places. Now, with the phosphoric acid, it does what the etching primer does, and those etching primers or etching paints, I don't know if they have that, they actually have phosphoric acid in them. So it saves you a bit of time, but it costs a lot more. So what you can actually do is buy the acid separately at the construction part, at the construction section, and then just get a normal primer and put it on there. So that's pretty interesting. And like I said, on the automotive section, oh, what the hell's happening? All right. In the automotive section, you will get all sorts of rust converters. They're actually called rust converters. And here's an example of something like that. I just got this from the regular construction zone, from Home Depot Auto Parts. And it says chasser huilé. Transfère instinctivement le huilé et surface protégée pour ne pas prendre. That's my attempt at French. Rust reformer. So it says it instantly converts rust to protected paintable surface. And here it goes to say bonds with rust to convert it to an easy paintable surface. So it's just doing that conversion. It's just converting something that you can't paint into something that you can paint. It says here, saving the effort of sanding rust all the way down to the bare metal. Let's see the part bits. Let me try and look at this. First aid treatment contains acetone, liquefied petroleum gas, and butyl acetate, dimethyl carbonate, and xylene, and not much else. But I'm going to test all these three products today. But that's my point. I've also seen people saying that the etching primer, it might not be compatible with most enamels. So the place where I used it, it worked fine. It's one of those things where people can say whatever they want. It won't work with this, and then you're sort of confused. Will it work or not? Well, at the end of the day, it all comes down to the experimentation. You got to put it on and give it a try. It may work, it might not. That's why I always try to go with what I have. If you start buying a bunch of stuff, then you know, if I can use the rust paint, which I always have in hand, and you know, I give it a try. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, well, then I'll just repaint. But some people have actually said you got to use the etching primer, and then you got to use a normal primer on it, or a acrylic primer, and then you can put the paint on. Not 100% sure about that. You'll have to look for it. Some paints you can't paint it on aluminum. I also got this stuff here, called galvanizing compound. So my idea is I'm not going to buy the etching primer. I might if I find it really cheap. I could not find it easily. I went to 3 different places, didn't find it, so makes things a little bit harder, but I have the etching primer. Thank you, Badu.